Hello, everyone. I'm Madison Ligon, founder of Youth Volleyball Club, Pegasus Athletics Club, coach, former D1 athlete, and the voice behind Court Vision. This podcast was created to serve as the space I needed when I was growing up, chasing my dreams of becoming a professional athlete, all the while slowly losing grip of who I was in the process. Here, we'll talk about what really happens in sports, not just the highlight reels, but the behind the scenes moments that shape us. Essentially, we're uncovering the mental, emotional, and cultural realities of being a modern day female athlete. And before we dive deeper into these conversations, I'd like to share my own story because this is where it all began. I grew up in a suburb right in between Fort Worth and Dallas, Texas. Both of my parents were collegiate athletes, and after their playing careers ended, my mom became a teacher and a coach. So truthfully, I've been in the gym since before I was even born. Sports are in my DNA. My high school volleyball coach, Mia, was actually one of my mom's first junior high athletes. There are even pictures of her at my baby shower. So in a lot of ways, you could say this path was laid out for me from the start. I started in rec leagues when I was 5, and by 12, I had committed to my first travel club team. From that point, I experienced just about every part elite sports has to offer. I've won national championships in juniors, played in countless tournaments, been heavily recruited, and I've been benched. I've played D1 beach volleyball at LSU, transferred out to LMU to transition into a pro career in LA, redshirted, grinded, competed, and ultimately was forced to walk away after a career-ending injury. When my sports career didn't end on my own terms, it genuinely destroyed me. Volleyball wasn't just something I did, it was who I was to my core. But in that stillness, in the separation from everything I had built my identity on, I started to see the cracks in the system I had spent my life inside of. The toxic obsession I had with stats, success, and wins that took precedence over everything else. The way I was taught to shrink myself, ignore signals from my body, and sacrifice everything for a starting spot, only to end up miserable and lost at the end. In that moment, I found myself asking, what was this all for? This question is what truly changed everything. I realized that if I was going to have a real impact on the next generation of athletes in my role now as a coach, I had to step it up and advocate for change. That realization pushed me to start asking even bigger questions, not just about myself, but about the sports system as a whole, because knowing things had to change wasn't enough. I wanted to understand why it's so common for athletes to end up burnt out, anxious, and disconnected from the very game that once brought them so much joy. And the more I dug in, the more I saw there's actual science behind it. Research explains exactly why athletes lose themselves chasing medals, stats, and scholarships, and why so many of us walk away from sports feeling empty instead of fulfilled. And this is where self-determination theory comes into play, a foundational framework in motivational psychology. It says that in order for any person, not just athletes, to truly thrive, 3 core psychological needs must be met. Number 1 is autonomy, the feeling that you have choice and agency in your life. Number 2 is competence, the feeling that you're improving and capable. And number 3 is relatedness, the feeling that you belong and that you're seen and supported by others. Looking back, I can see that these needs weren't consistently being met in the environments I was a part of. Not because people didn't care, but because this wasn't a part of the conversation yet. No one was asking, how can our athletes feel ownership over their path? How can we create a safe space that encourages a growth mindset? How do we build real connection in a culture obsessed with competition? I'll be honest, I take full responsibility for how I showed up. Yes, I pushed myself hard and was talented. No one can get to the D1 level and then try and pursue a pro career without a sense of determination. But I definitely stayed quiet when I should have spoken up, and for sure chased external success at the expense of my own internal peace. And I know that I'm not the only one. Even when I was doing everything right, my nervous system was screaming that something wasn't working. And when those core needs go unmet long enough, Research shows exactly the result of what I lived at the time, which was I was burnt out. I was constantly anxious. I felt disconnected from my friends, my family, my teammates, essentially my entire community. I had so much confusion in terms of who I was, what my identity was outside of volleyball, and eventually my body physically broke down. I've realized through this that we can't keep pretending that winning is the only metric of success. Not in clubs, not in families, not in coaching, not in athlete culture. We have to be willing to ask ourselves the harder questions. What does it cost to play through everything? And is it worth it? Because if we want long, sustainable, fulfilling careers in sports and in life, we can't keep replicating broken systems just because they're familiar or they've worked in the past. This is why I created my youth volleyball program, PAC. So Pegasus Athletics Club, otherwise known as PAC, wasn't just created to be another volleyball club. It was built as an intentional response to everything I experienced in the sports system. PAC exists because I wanted to create the environment I never had as a youth athlete playing club. One where the whole person is seen, not just your stats. One where confidence is built through connection, not fear. One where athletes are taught how to care for themselves, not just perform on command. We do that through 3 core pillars of our philosophy that guide everything that we do. Number 1, holistic development. We don't just train great volleyball players. We develop emotionally intelligent, grounded, and self-aware humans. This looks like pre and post-practice journaling, recovery days, meditation, visualization, and honest conversations about identity, intention, and growth, not just performance. No scholarship or trophy is worth sacrificing your health or sense of self. Number 2 is supportive community. We create the kind of team culture that prioritizes connection over comparison. This looks like community service projects, team events, and moments that help athletes feel seen. Connected teams play and live better. Number 3 is high-level coaching and mentorship. We provide elite-level training, but not at the expense of empathy. This looks like individualized feedback rooted in trust, leadership development for players and coaches who have all played at the D1 level or beyond, who model the behavior we want to see in our players. Mentorship matters, and the coach-athlete relationship should be a foundation, not a threat. It's important to note that PAC isn't perfect. We're evolving, growing, and learning in real time, but everything we do is rooted in this one truth. Athletes are not machines. They're humans, and their worth is not dependent on how well they perform. This is the standard at PAC. Every beach session, every indoor practice, every conversation, every moment. We're not just preparing athletes to win a match, we're preparing them to navigate life with clarity, resilience, and intention. PAC is the work, and this podcast, Court Vision, is the why. Every week, I'll be pulling back the curtain, sharing lessons from the court, reflections from my own journey, and practical tools for building something that lasts long after your playing days are over. So before we wrap up the super quick episode, here is this episode's journal prompt, something to help you reflect on your own path. If my sport ended tomorrow, what would I still have that matters to me? As you grab your notebooks and write down your answers to that question, maybe put on the song of the week, which is Seasoning by Anthony Sismarek. I don't know if I said that right. Hopefully it was close, but for me, it's been a great reminder to slow down and be in the present, in the highs, lows, and everything in between. Just like in sports, it's so easy in life to chase the next win or the next milestone and really, truly forget to appreciate where you are right now. This song highlights the beauty in the ordinary and even the hard moments, reminding us that all of it adds flavor to our story. And that feels like the perfect way to close out Court Vision's very first episode. If this episode struck a chord with you, share it with someone, a teammate, coach, parent, player, or anyone who's ever felt like the system wasn't built for them. If you want to stay in the loop with what we have going on over at PAC, subscribe to The Packet, our weekly newsletter. I share upcoming events, recovery tips, behind-the-scenes stories, ways to grow on and off the court, and more. Thank you so much for being here and making it to the end of this episode. As always, take what resonates and leave the rest. I hope to see you all next week. Bye.